Hi, welcome to CVAMS Island Pulse, the Cape Verdean Health Dialogue Podcast, Episode 8, Part 2. We are pleased to present this series that embodies the principles of integrative healthcare. This year, we focused on the impact of stress and exploring techniques to managing and calming our nervous system. Today, we are happy to bring you Part 2 of the impact on stress. And we have an amazing guest, Dr.
Mhm.
Isaias Rodrigues, who is in Thailand uh, doing his thing. And we're going to ask you and learn and have you give us some insights on what you're doing and how you're managing there. But first, let's start by you just telling us, everyone, a little bit about you, Isaias, Dr. Rodrigues. I'll call you Isaias. Um, and what your journey is and where you are now and what's happening there for you in Thailand.
Absolutely.
Welcome.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Selena. And yes, so I'm Isaias Rodrigues. I was born in Cape Verde and in Santiago, Praia, grew up. I guess home base is kind of Cidade Velha in Cape Verde.
Okay.
That's where I grew up with my grandparents for the most part. Between that and Eugenio Lima, I have both grandparents living in those two locations. I moved. I lived in Mozambique for 2 years, and then I moved to the U.S. at 10 years old. So I guess in Mozambique, I got to, I improved my Portuguese a bit, and also opened my eyes out to the world. We would get to visit South Africa, and I felt like that was my first experience with like big cities, of course, outside of Praia. As far as Maputo, Johannesburg, Pretoria. And then yes, so then I've grown up in the U.S. in Massachusetts primarily, specifically Amherst. So where we have the five college areas, UMass, Amherst College, Smith, Mount Holyoke, and so I always grew up around, especially like we have a decent amount of growing Cape Verdean community in Amherst, and it's
Oh,
all kind of been family. One family brings another, and so we have a community in that sense. And also at UMass, we have Sid Ferreira, who's always welcomed so many
yes,
students in and helped so many of us along the way.
exactly.
Uh, my mom too worked in admissions, and she
Oh,
did had some parts in it as well. She helped some students get in, and through the process. So that's always been nice. And we had always a big Cape Verdean cultural night events. I think in the '90s, early 2000s, it definitely was a huge thing. It's not as big as it was. Maybe we just have more events going on, but that's where I grew up. So it felt like, I think growing up in that area, it certainly helps to stay centered and grounded as far as education, number one, and then culture and that. And so I think that has certainly been a blessing being growing up in Amherst.
well, this is interesting because you've been in environments where people are more holistically inclined, right?
Mhm.
Um,
Yes, lately. So
late.
the shift happened eventually, I guess,
So
because Mhm.
how did you journey into naturopathic medicine?
Mhm.
What stemmed your
Interest.
interest as as a younger person?
Absolutely.
What was
Yeah,
there?
great question. Yes, great question, actually, because even as I was going back to my story growing up, as I was growing up with my grandmother, I always give her that credit because she was that very wise grandmother who knew a lot of home remedies. She was not like known as a healer per se, but a lot of people who knew her would come to her for some home remedies, and I would just see that. Obviously, I would be at the receiving end of that wisdom as well, and something just, um, yes, something resonated with that early on. There was something about that vulnerable state that we all experience when we're not feeling well, when we're sick. And then when someone has the answers and then it works, and then they're giving you that calming presence.
Mhm.
And I admire that feeling. And so it just, that whole interaction was something that resonated early on. And I think that's where it started from. I think from that point on, it just, other things pile up as you grow up, and you start to you notice things. And I
Mhm.
think part of that is our calling. I think some people will just, something just resonates with you from an early age.
Absolutely.
Um, and it's sometimes more traumatic than others, sadly enough. Sometimes it could be, not a positive experience that is part of the healer's journey. Sometimes we ourselves either have an ailment, we lose loved ones. So
Mhm.
luckily for me, it was mostly a positive one. And so I grew up with that sense of like wanting to know herbs, wanting to be that like wise person that knew, the remedies, and um, even the stories that she had. So I feel like that's something that I always try to emulate. So I have to,
Yes, the stories.
yes,
Really.
yes. So much wisdom in the stories, right? And she's
Oh,
very religious. So at a lot of them are biblical stories.
mhm.
And
Yes.
it's funny. And even it's interesting actually, because even talking about UMass, when I eventually attended UMass in Amherst, I actually grew up, even though I grew up with one part of the family being Seventh-day Adventist, the other part of the family being Catholics. I actually never really read the Bible much. I went to Sunday school some, but it was in college when I had a Portuguese professor. I was doing a minor in Portuguese, and so we had a lot of some higher courses in Portuguese, and that's when he encouraged us to read the Bible, not only from a religious sense, but also because they're a collection of books that have been passed down through ages, and there's a lot of wisdom in them. And there are a lot of interesting stories, and that teach us a lot about life. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And he was saying how there are songs, there's poetry in there, and there are so many stories that write almost like novels, essentially, that you can read and extract a lot from. And so that got me into reading the Bible from that perspective, from like even the practical knowledge that I was able to get. Um, and sorry, like I'm diverging a little bit, but um, yeah. So back, but let's
Well,
see.
I I think that this is interesting in terms of our culture,
Mm-hmm.
grandmothers,
Yes,
who
yes.
really planted seeds in us. Even though I was born in the United States, my grandmother never spoke English, and she's from
Mm-hmm.
Brava, and she planted this seed you see today, in
Mm.
me, and your grandmother planted this seed in you. So our culture
Yeah.
is profound, and
Yes.
how it really permeates through who we become. Isn't that pretty? And the spiritual parts of it is the same. Um,
Absolutely.
so that's beautiful story, and the stories. That isn't
Mm-hmm.
that what kind of, when you hear stories, you kind of keep them and you keep them inside of you, right? They don't go
Absolutely.
away.
No.
It's like
And
not, it's a different way of talking, different way of giving information is through story,
yeah.
right?
Yes. Yes.
Our culture is amazing.
Yeah, and here's that wisdom about stories is that it's actually the best way to remember lessons. Because even going through school, now most of us we know that one of the best ways for you to like learn a concept and remember it for a test is to kind of like tell a story about it, about that topic, because then you can piece in the
Exactly.
details, and that helps you to remember, right? When we have
Yep.
mnemonics, or when we tell stories about something. So it's like this is actually, they figured out a long time ago that we learn through stories. um
Well, this is
so
amazing. And you also talk about our passion when you say that this stuff was already ingrained in us because you had the opportunity to witness naturopathic remedies right from your grandmother's hand, from someone you trusted and felt safe about and believed in
yeah,
what she was doing and was doing well with you, taking care of
yeah,
you. And mine was in observing behaviors as a young child. Didn't know why, and I still do it terribly. I'm always staring down something, trying to figure out the behavior. And this is where I belong. So our passion has definitely entered into who we are and has created this volume that we sustain, which is amazing. So tell me
Yeah.
about your journey. So you went from Amherst and then you graduated, and where did you go from there in terms of your work? And what's your
Yes.
focus of your work?
Yes, thank you. So obviously going into Amherst, UMass in Amherst, I was a pre-med student, so that interest again is it like permeated through all the stages of my life. And in undergrad, you're so busy with trying to make the grades and just like figuring out life that I didn't even think about which direction I was going to go to as far as medicine, I knew I wanted to get into I was actually pre-dentist. So I was between medicine and dentistry.
Hmm.
And that change came about because people were, people gave you advice, and someone said, "Hey, actually, dentist, maybe being a dentist is a better bet because you're able to like start your own practice a lot sooner, and you have a lot more freedom." And so I was always figuring out, okay, maybe I'll do pre-dent, but it was the same. It's the same thing in undergrad. For anyone who's not familiar with how the pre-medical system is set up, at least in the US. It's that when you're going to college, you will register as a pre-med, and it's not medical school yet, but they get you on a course where you're taking all the prerequisite courses to get into medical school. And so it just kind of, sets the stage for all the classes that you should be taking. And funny enough, that's also where I met Dr. Selena's brilliant daughter. And it's funny how studying with her also really saved me with organic chemistry because,
Oh, that was
um,
tough.
yeah, yes, yes, and she's super smart, and she was one of those people that I tagged along with, and it got me through. Because I had a study group with a lot of friends, but we just could not get as much studying done. And yeah, so as as soon as we started studying together, it just made everything easier. We were quick, efficient. We did study questions.
Yeah.
But yes, that was my journey at UMass. And so after UMass, I worked for 2 years, 2 to 3 years at Boston University as a research assistant.
Okay.
Um, yes, and it was like I didn't feel ready to go right into medical school. I wanted to get some real life experience, and also because I was still trying to figure out where exactly do I fit in
Yeah.
the medical field, and
Mhm.
and it was still not, it's daunting, right? There's so much there are so many options. Um, my mother had suggested even once, maybe even starting with like nursing school, which in hindsight would have been a brilliant idea. It's
Mm,
something now, luckily we as with CVAMS, we do have a student resident group,
mhm.
and it is important to really talk to students who are interested in that path because the path along the way to medicine there are certain degrees that you can take that really help you along the way.
Sure.
So I don't want to diverge too much, but yes, uh, as I was a research assistant at Boston University, it was a great experience because I was working under a cardiologist, two cardiologists actually doing research. And then a lot of my fellow colleagues were also studying to go into medical school, start or PhD programs. And so that was another great experience. And then during that moment, I was also able to live in Dorchester or at times commute from Brockton. And so I was able to also live within Cape Verdean communities, both in Brockton and Boston,
But
which
what you didn't realize, though, Isaias, is that your grandmother had already planted the seed. And
mhm.
when did you let the seed grow into naturopathic medicine? Because that was the passion, right?
Yes, that was the vision.
That was the vision.
It
How
really
did
was a
that happen?
gradual. Yes, it was a gradual thing because the more I didn't know about, even mind you, throughout the time I was at UMass, I did not know about naturopathic schools. I just knew that my view was that I was going to have to just go to a medical school get through that. And then as I'm practicing, maybe travel all over the world and learn natural medicine, learn about herbs, learn about nutrition. Um, and so that was really the thinking I had. It wasn't until I was now closer to the period of applying to medical schools. Now I have my prerequisites. Okay, now I have my 2 years of experience. Now let me start looking at medical schools and let me see what they offer. Because before then, as I was said, you're really too busy. And I wasn't even focusing on which medical school I was going to get into. It was just, let me just get the best grades I can. Let me fill out my resume as much as I can. And then I'll see where this lands me, what my options are. And so now when I'm working as a research assistant and I'm finally able to start looking at schools, then I start exploring more, and then one of my mentors, actually an older cousin, was giving me advice, and he told me, hey, just whichever field you feel like you need to go into, what specialty you want, just try to know everything about it. Just be a specialist in that field. And so as he was telling me that, then not only did I need to now figure out, okay, what exactly in medicine, because you can't just say I want to be a doctor. There, right, different specialists. You could be focusing on mental health, right? You could be focusing on whether it's general surgery, women's health, men's health. There's as you go in, open that door now, it's another Pandora's box, right? And so the more he told me that, now I figured, okay, I need to understand the medical field as a whole. And the more I found out about the medical field, I realized that, okay, the doctor's life and practice is not the way I want to be practicing, because I don't want to spend 15 minutes with a patient and just prescribe a medication. And so that is where, trying to now align that vision that I had from, that seed that was planted by my grandmother into what the ideal career really looks like for me. And I knew I had to do a lot of nutrition, because that's something that was infused also along growing up, especially that part by my grandmother as well as my father, who was very health conscious.
Okay.
Um, some of my uncles also, and that was another part, as that seed was planted by my grandmother. Now, like I said, you're always observing things now. You're observing how people eat. Um, you're observing their health, their life quality. And so as a kid now, I'm observing people's health. I'm observing my father and one of his brothers mainly, and how they're always boasting about, oh, I eat healthy, I can still exercise, I don't look 40, I don't look 50, and things like that, in a fun manner, but it stood out, and it was true, right? Most people would give him that compliment. And even my grandfather too, who lived to be 96, was another testament of health, because as a Seventh-day Adventist, there are many lifestyle things that he lived by that
Right,
you can
right,
tell was the
right.
reason why he was so healthy. And so all of these things to me were so important, and I saw, oh, like if I just go into regular medicine, I won't be able to practice like that. Um, and obviously now there are a lot of conventional doctors that do practice like that. Eventually, the ones once you open your own clinic,
Mm-hmm.
but so as I was doing my research, I considered acupuncture. I considered just being a massage therapist. I considered just being a nutritionist. I considered just being an herbalist. And so I was really conflicted about which way will I even go. Eventually, I found out osteopathic medicine, which is what your daughter ended up doing as well, because they're a bit more holistic. And
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
and I discovered the holistic world. And so I just
Okay.
begun searching for all of these more holistic
Mm-hmm.
practices that were
Nice.
possible. And so osteopathic medicine became it. I was sure that I was going to just apply to osteopathic medical schools. And then one day while I was looking up other schools, naturopathy came up. And as I was looking holistic medical schools, or holistic this, holistic that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
I came upon the website and I said, wait, I think I've heard the term naturopathy, but what is it? I didn't even know what it was.
Oh, that's
And
your blessing.
exactly.
Wow.
I guess gladly Google had come into the picture at this point. If it wasn't for Google, maybe I wouldn't have found it because we have
Well,
counselors, we have pre-med counselors, but they've never mentioned it to
oh,
me.
they would, and they wouldn't. No,
Yeah.
right?
And then even when I went back after while I was still a research assistant and I found that school, one of my colleagues actually went back into one of those pre-med books that list all of the medical schools, and one of the school that I went to, it was a different campus. The original campus was actually listed there, but it was like the only school, the only naturopathic school that was listed in in that book for medical schools. And yes, the thing was for me was when I looked at the curriculum for then I started comparing like what the curriculum looks like for osteopathic schools, for MD medical schools, and for naturopathic medical schools. And the curriculum just it was everything I wanted to do. There was nutrition, there was environmental medicine.
You felt it, right?
It
You
was all
felt
there.
it. It was
It
it,
was
and
it
you
was
latched on.
exactly. It last
Huh.
not only that, it was that point where everything converged,
Yeah.
and it really impacted how I looked at life because sometimes in life there are certain things that you want that you think aren't possible, right? They don't align, right? It's like, okay, maybe I need to just be a doctor and not be a nutritionist. If I'm going to be a nutritionist, I'm not going to be a doctor. Or like, am I going to be a herbalist or am I going to even chiropractic looks interesting. Okay, osteopathic medicine looks interesting, more hands-on healing,
Mhm.
all of that. So it was like, man, like, what do I do? And in naturopathic medicine, all of it was in there.
Wow.
Mind you, another thing with undergrad, I also majored in public health. So public health became another passion of mine um, as I went on because the health of communities is as important as the health of the individual. And
Mhm.
then with that, environmental medicine. So I always kind of also had this bird's eye view look at health. I always wanted to understand health from the smallest it's the smallest factors, the smallest microbes, from the cell all the way out in the bigger picture to environmental medicine, right? How pollution affects us, how
Wow.
our physical environments affect us.
Wow.
Um, and so with naturopathic medicine, there were classes for all of these. And I
All
figured, okay,
that.
I didn't need to go piece these in myself. Someone someone has already been doing this, or several people, right?
Wow. Yeah.
But it wasn't an easy decision, right? Because then you're going into a field that isn't as established, right? So then all these other questions come in now. Okay, well, like, is this even a legitimate field? Am I going to be taken seriously? What will people say, right? What will my family say? Will they think,
It's your
you know,
gift. It's
yeah,
your gift. Your grandmother, it was blessed on you a long time ago, and it's your passion. And when you do
exactly.
your passion, you do it well and you get recognized.
There you go.
Let's move into how you have done it well, because you had your
Hmm.
practice in San Diego, and
Yeah.
then you have now you're in Thailand. Tell me what it is that you're doing and the whole idea of stress. How does that come into your practice? What do you as a naturopathic doctor do with
Mhm.
stress and you're doing it, West Coast, you've done it in the East Coast, and now you're doing it internationally. What is that all about? Tell me what you're doing and how it's impacting stress.
Yes. Well, it's a ongoing journey, right? When we sign up for medicine, we know you're always learning, you're always evolving. So in my way, it's still now, it's like you've made it, but now you're still making it to the next level, right? To like establishing yourself, to figuring out your footing. And so that has taken me from California. I moved back home a year ago, and I stayed home for a year and to help my dad through surgery and just to kind of be back home because it was about 8 years
Wow.
that was gone now for school again. and that I lived in California. So school, and then I worked a few years. Um, and then now I'm in Thailand because I always wanted to work in a wellness setting, like in a retreat setting, not just the office, right? I wanted to be surrounded by herbs, by nature. That was another vision that also came up along the way. And I found it here in Thailand. It's one of the world's most renowned wellness retreats. People come here from all over the world, and obviously, like high-paying clientele, people that are generally very successful, and obviously have the means to be able to pay for such services. And we are again from UK, Australia, US, New
Wow.
York, Paris. And a lot of the people that we see here are people who are going through a transition in life, career change, divorce, loss of loved ones, being caregivers, right, for their ailing parents now, aging parents, um, people who are just burned out from their careers, right? People who have been very career focused and actually had success, but also realizing that now is a time that they really need to take a break and care for themselves. And and this is where the burnout and fatigue comes in.
Mhm.
Um, is that it's a big part of what we do at a wellness retreat, right? And as far as and in just a general sense that with holistic medicine, it has its area of right of its strengths.
Mhm.
Obviously, conventional medicine also has its strengths, right?
Yep.
And so when it comes to convention to our medicine, our strength is in self-care in chronic diseases, non-communicable diseases, especially, right? And these are the top killers nowadays.
Mhm.
Earlier in the earlier 1900s, it was a lot of the infectious diseases, tuberculosis, and now we've gotten the vaccines, we've done the public health measures to prevent a lot of the infectious diseases. Now people are dying of heart attacks, strokes,
Young
type
people.
2 complications, and it's getting younger and younger. That's the scary part as well. Obesity, and it all happens together, right? We name different conditions, but they're usually coming in one picture. Someone who has high blood pressure likely also has high cholesterol, likely also is trending towards obesity. And then now there comes the mental health part, the depression, anxiety, overstressed, um, all of it, and
I
it's all happening in
remember,
one body.
I remember us, we did a case together in New
Hmm.
York, you and I, and we shared it anyway. And you did some work, you did some labs, you did a nutritional thing with this person, um, and that was also helpful. You want to talk a little bit about what it is that you do to kind of combat these kinds of, this happened to be significant, uh,
Yeah.
complex mental health stuff.
Absolutely. Yes, well, it comes back to that mind-body component, right? This particular case, as in most cases, you have a mental health specialist dealing with them, right? I'm not a mental health specialist per se, but I'm dealing with the whole person, and I'm just a part of the team.
The whole
That's
person. Tell me about that. Yes.
come with the whole person, mind, body, spirit, environment. So sometimes we say just mind, body, medicine, but it can go beyond that. Mind, body, emotion, spirit, environment, occupation, family dynamics, culture, all of
Music,
that
genetic.
has genetics and epigenetics,
Mhm.
right? So those two are huge because there's genetics, which is what you inherit, and then there's epigenetics, which is based on lifestyle and exposures.
Yes.
And so this is almost like how we affect our genetics. What genes are
Wow.
actually produced, and then some of these were also passed down. And this is how we adapt as humans and as most organisms. We Epigenetics is probably a big part of how we adapt and pass down new genes and
Wow.
adjust to our environment.
We
But
could do,
yes, so in that case, sorry.
no, no, that's amazing. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Yeah, in that case, I wanted to focus on his gut health. That's a huge part
Yeah.
because when we just picture mind, body, we're talking about the mind and the body. We forget that it's connected by the neck, right? It's almost like we just
Cut it
cut
off.
people off. We just deal with the mental health, and then someone else just deals with gut health. Someone else just deals with the joints,
Yes.
uh, and we forget that we're treating the whole
Oh
person.
my. Yes.
And mind you, if it even goes beyond just the whole person, it's like the whole person's community, right? The whole person's surrounding, the person's health history. Um, when we even go down clinically, when there's one person in front of you, you have to look at all of it. That's why we spend a lot of time with with patients, with the people in front of us, to understand their story, what's been passed down, both genetically and culturally and lifestyle habits, um, and then yeah, like gut health, for example. Right? If we even go into more specific, we now recognize the gut as a second brain.
Wow.
Uh, and scientifically, you can barely argue with it because so how many neurotransmitters are also produced in our gut.
Okay.
And now that goes into that what are you eating? Your nutrition is going to impact that. What nutrients you're getting that are serve as precursors to the neurotransmitters, right? And even when we talk about the interplay between stress, emotions, and food,
Mm.
right? We know stress eating is another thing. So when you're stressed, what are you going for, right? When you're heartbroken, why are you craving that ice cream? Our bodies do naturally craves the glucose, and then so some one thing too that I like to do is almost try to help people find healthy comfort foods, because then instead of going for the ice cream, you can maybe just have steamed sweet potatoes, where you're going to get the fiber, you'll get the nutrients, and your body gets it does need it does need the carbohydrates and the fiber and the vitamin A and all of the nutrients in the sweet potatoes.
Hmm.
And so that is one thing too that I see often. People who are struggling with mental health often don't have the best diets.
Mm.
And and in this day and age, it's hard to see what someone who's, I mean, now we're getting more familiar with it. But the thing is, we have so many foods that are high in calories, but low in nutrients.
Yes,
And
very.
you're not
Mm.
you're not you're looking at someone that doesn't they're not starving, so you're not thinking that food is an issue, right?
Hmm.
Because they're getting enough calories from food, but they could actually be very nutrient deficient. People are we're low in fiber, we're low in magnesium, we're low in potassium, we're low in a lot of antioxidants, and all of these play a major role in our mental health as well.
I'm curious, Isaiah.
Mhm.
When you mention stress, we know the stress hormone cortisol also lands in the gut. That's where it ends
Yeah.
up, right? And
Mhm.
and chronic with people who have chronic anxiety, chronic stress, this is a big factor for them as well. What's happening with that in your practice?
Um,
Do you
let's yeah.
do you
Uh-huh.
measure for cortisol? I mean, how do you incorporate it?
Absolutely. Again, it goes back to the whole clinical picture of the person,
Mhm.
and then of course we run functional labs as well.
Okay.
As, and so for cortisol, one of the best ones to run is salivary cortisol, because that allows you to test for free cortisol in your bloodstream. And it also allows you to test for like 4-point cortisol, where you're testing cortisol throughout the day at 8 a.m., 12 p.m., 5 p.m., 8 p.m., midnight. So if you just do that in like 4-hour increments, four or five tests throughout the day, you should be able to, number one, understand what cortisol does naturally,
Uh-huh.
right? It's a stress hormone, but it's not bad. So, right, sometimes we will use things like cortisol and we'll think it's all bad, but it's in our body for a reason.
Right.
So in the morning between 6 and 8 a.m., our cortisol level is at the highest. And that shows its importance because that's what gets us up and going. right? That's what we need. We need the cortisol to shoot up in the morning. And then cortisol will also help the body to release glucose into the bloodstream
Okay.
because our bodies run on sugar. Glucose is the primary fuel source. And so that is what we need to get going then.
Hmm.
6 to 8 a.m. Cortisol spike so we can wake up and get going. And then that also plays in the picture of circadian rhythm. That's a big part of what we teach people,
Hmm.
is that we are designed to be in line, in tune with the sun, right? That's 6,
Yes.
8 a.m. generally. That's when sun rises. That's when we rise up from bed as well. And then that cortisol is going to gradually decrease and it's going to be at its slowest around 9 p.m.,
Hmm.
right? And that's, again, right after sunset. So that's when our body naturally is supposed to be winding down. One of the main things that happens in this day and age with the artificial lights, with the schedules that we have, with TV, uh, our phones, is that at 9 p.m., when we actually should be going to sleep, sometimes we're on the computer, we're watching TV, or some of us have more work to do, right? We're still getting on a call at that time. And so what happens is now your retina gets exposed to light, especially UVB radiation from your screen. And your body doesn't know what a computer is. It was not designed at the same time that a computer was. It was designed when there was sun was pretty much the only light source. So your body thinks it's sunlight. And so now instead of your cortisol staying low and now your body producing melatonin for you to go to sleep, that whole shift now gets destroyed because cortisol spikes up again at night. Sometimes that's the first thing that starts us off on the wrong path because, of course, this is not just happening one night, it becomes a habit and it's going on for 10, 20 years, where now you just had a long day, but when you're supposed to be having your downtime, you just wrecked it because you exposed your eyes to light, to a light source. Now your cortisol just ramped up again at night when it's not supposed to. Now it pushes back melatonin. So now you're not going to get any good sleep, at least until 1 a.m. You've just destroyed it. Even if you end up closing everything down by 10:30, 11 o'clock, you just missed that first ride, right? You just missed that first boat for sleep, essentially. And when you miss that first boat for sleep, you've missed your body's chance to recuperate, right? Because when that melatonin goes up, now your body's able to go into like the deep stage sleep. That's where growth hormone gets released. That's what helps your body to repair your muscle and bones. That's how your body goes into super repair mode, essentially. And you skip that, right? Even your neurosynapses, your ability to remember everything you learned the day before, sharpen your memory. All of that kind of goes down the drain by just the fact that you've missed that 9 o'clock signal for sleep. Um, and then so then over time, obviously now your cortisol has ramped up again. You never got good enough sleep. Now it's 6, 8 a.m. again, and now you have to get yourself going. Right. And this is happening day after day after day. More and more, you're going to now have to rely on coffee to get you going. Um, and your cortisol is getting spiked at night. And mind you, now that's besides all the stressors that we go through throughout the day.
Exactly. Exactly. We
And
have about 10 more minutes.
oh,
I,
wow.
I don't want to cut you off, but I really want to hear what would be your care plan for those of us who you just mentioned who spike our cortisol a lot because we
Yes.
have such heavy schedules, especially you medical people who are not just medical. I mean, any one of us in the care profession, we're carrying a load even vicariously. Lots of
Mhm.
times we don't even know that we're carrying of our patients. So, what would be a care plan that you would suggest to the very, very busy, maybe not the, stresses are coming to us every day, all day long, right? I know
Yep.
that cortisol becomes a problem when we're overstressed and we're constantly stressed.
Yep.
Um, but what would be a care plan you could give us before we finish this conversation?
All right, yeah, I'll try to make it as succinct as possible. Obviously, it can't just be one thing because there's multiple things going wrong, right?
Of course.
So the key things is first, as we're talking about the circadian rhythm, you have to honor downtime. You have to respect it, right? If you're exercising and you want to build muscle, you know that the rest and recovery is huge for building muscle.
Mm,
If you want to be a productive person, you cannot skip out on sleep. You know that without proper sleep, you're just not going to be as sharp. Your focus is not going to be there. Your mood is not going to be as good. You're going to be more irritable. Everything goes down the drain. So that's the first part is honoring that circadian rhythm, having the discipline to shut everything out, be in a dark room, no electronics nearby. By 9 p.m., you're in bed. That's the ultimate goal. That's one of them. As hard as it is, we can talk about the other things, but it's like that time management, whatever you need to get done that you have not done by 9 o'clock, you're not gonna get everything done. So you need to compartmentalize things and prioritize. At this point, you need to prioritize your downtime. If you want to be fresh for the next day, you have to find a way to respect that. That's number one. Number two is how you eat, what you're eating, when you're eating. All of that also plays into effect.
mhm,
One thing that we do is you cannot eat and digest food while you're in a stress mode
mm,
because our bodies has a sympathetic mode and a
yeah,
parasympathetic mode.
yeah.
Sympathetic mode is fight or flight. Parasympathetic is rest and digest.
Mhm,
So your body only has, it's like drive or park.
mhm,
Which one? I tell people to eat when you're stressed out and eating on the run, as we do, right? We're eating while we're working. If you do that, it's like you're pulling up to the gas station and your engine is running while you're filling up gas,
mm,
right? When you're filling up your gas, you need to be on park mode. And that goes into, it even goes back into one of the things that I remember from my grandmother from day one is hora de comer é hora sagrado.
yeah, that's
Like
right.
meal time is sacred.
Hmm.
And that's what we need. Like, you need to develop a routine around food where you sit in the dinner table. No one does that no, anymore. When you sit with your family, when you're sitting with loved ones, when you take the time to appreciate the food and digest, chew the food properly until it's liquid, allow your digestive enzymes to function, allow all the blood flow to go to your digestive tract so more enzymes are released from your pancreas and the upper part of your intestines. That's how you can actually prevent a lot of the gas and bloating. That's how you can prevent a
Okay.
lot of the constipation, a lot of the acid reflux is by honoring the food process. That's
Mm.
just how you're eating, right? That's not even what you're eating. That could be another guess, but in short, you need to eat 90 to 99% plants. They need to be fresh whenever possible. What we're devoid in is fiber. Nowadays, everyone is gung ho about protein, 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 and it's got people elevating their cholesterol levels, saturated fats, chronic inflammation, more antibiotics from animal sources. And so you need to maximize how many plants you eat and how fresh they are. Those are two things. You cannot overcook foods. We're eating over processed foods, overcooked, oversteamed, freeze dried, so we do so much to our food. All of it is technically processing, right? Processing is not just what you in the chips. Even putting your food in a blender is technically processing.
Mm.
Not that it's bad necessarily, but just to be mindful of what you're doing to the food from its natural state to the point where you consume it. If you're deep frying it, that's definitely processing. So that's another key component. You have to honor how much nutrients you're getting because when foods are fresh, that's when you get antioxidants from them. Salads, when they're fresh, that's when you get antioxidants. The water content in the food, the fiber, the vitamins and minerals. A lot of things are heat sensitive. They're temperature sensitive. So you denature things when you process it too much. That's another key component.
Mhm.
Um, let's see what else. Exercise, movement. Sometimes we think we're too busy to exercise. You do need to take that time to exercise. Your body needs it. It's going to improve your sleep. It's going to improve circulation. It keeps your joints healthy. By increasing your muscle mass, by maintaining your muscle mass, especially women, that's how you also maintain your bone mass, your bone density.
Mm.
All
My
right.
daughter
They go
says
ahead.
I'm shrinking.
Yeah.
She says,
That again?
Chantel says I'm shrinking.
Oh, yeah. Hydration. Yeah. Hydration
Oh
and
my God,
muscle man. We
my
all have to do
problem.
we all have to go back to the times when we actually did manual labor. We're not doing manual labor with our works, so we actually go to the gym and lift weights. So you have to do manual labor for fun now, or pick up gardening. Expose yourself to sunlight. That's another one.
Mm,
Sunlight actually, even if I have to leave on this topic, is how just your eyes getting exposed to sunlight that releases serotonin, right? That's an antidepressant. One key picture, for example, is seasonal affective disorder. We
yeah.
see it especially with people of color. We're in cold climates where we're barely getting sunlight. We just have a higher tendency to get depressed simply because we're not getting enough sunlight.
Exactly. Exactly.
When you expose your body to sunlight in the daytime, it produces vitamin D, right, which helps your immunity, which helps your bone health. Serotonin, as we said, which helps your mental health. And then it helps your body stay in that routine because now you're going to get more sleepy at nighttime because your body is getting reacclimated with the sun again. So that's another key component. I mean, I can keep going on and
No,
on.
well, I think you really need to do us a favor and send us a care plan at some point. Just, you can send it to me and I'll share it with everyone because those are really important points that we don't think about. We don't think about the
Yeah.
whole body. We really
It's
don't.
almost like common sense, some of these things, where it's like, oh yeah, you're right. I should sleep, and I haven't slept at 9 o'clock since I had the curfew in high school.
No, we're so overburdened with things. And yeah, so those are extraordinarily great points. It would be nice to have that in some type of way to be able to have that in hand,
Yes,
as a
yes.
care plan.
And
So
just aside, there's other things too, of course. Then we can go into different herbs that can help you. We have specific foods that we can talk about.
you
What
need to
else?
come and do another podcast just on
Yeah,
self,
maybe we could
just
do like a part two
just
on like
on,
some of the
just on
details.
self-care. When we
Yeah.
finish this round, we're going to start a new round, and it'll probably be on self-care, just
Okay.
on self-care. Um,
Good.
so we would love for you to come back and talk about that.
I would
When
love
do we expect you to come back to the United States?
I'm still figuring that out. I do have a contract here, but I do want to get closer to family. So I
Chupa.
am getting amazing experience here. It's an amazing work environment. I love being here.
Oh,
Uh,
good.
but
Well, we miss you, so come back
yes.
and visit. And Martha's Vineyard is always open to you when you decide to come and take a visit.
Let's open a retreat in Martha's Vineyard. That'll get me back.
Okay. Well, we can talk about that. We talked about that yesterday with the women who were talking about holistic health as well, and with all of their expertise and putting together a real holistic retreat, I mean, look at you. Yeah.
That will bring me back.
Okay, we can plan it. No doubt
All
about it.
right. There you
So
go. One key
thank you,
plan.
Isaias, for joining us. It was all so impressive. Thank you so much. And we hope you out there, the audience, experienced this as both being enriching and thought-provoking. Um, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks with our next episode, which will be, I'm not really sure what it is, but it'll be episode 9. And we will have you join us, and we'll want you to follow us on CVAMS Health Dialogues at gmail.com YouTube and Cape Verdean American Medical Society's podcast on Spotify. So thank you, Isaiah. God bless you, and may you travel well and bring us back some great stuff. And we look forward to speaking with you again. So ciao, obrigada, and God bless your grandmother.
She's in
Our
Brockton now.
grandmothers,
So she's
they
in
planted the
Massachusetts. So
seeds,
God
and
bless
here we are
all,
talking to. They're like,
God bless
it's
all
the
our
puppy.
grandmothers.
It's the
All
puppy.
of our
Yes,
all of our grandmothers.
all of my
Absolutely.
grandmothers.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes.
All right.
Absolutely.
God bless. Thank you, and we'll talk soon.
Absolutely. Pleasure as always.
Okay. Bye bye.